All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending today's webinar, Building a Culture of Attendance in Out-of-School Programs, presented by Emma Herdean from Attendance Works. My name is Catherine Kuhn. I'm a Youth Development Program Coordinator at the Center for Schools and Communities. I will be the content moderator for today's session. Michael Passari is our tech monitor for today. Today's webinar, again, is presented by Emma Herdean, EDD, who is a senior fellow with Attendance Works. I will now turn the microphone over to Emma to begin with today's content.
Thanks so much, Catherine, and everyone. Welcome to our session. Really looking forward to hearing lots of your thoughts and participation, and we definitely look forward to learning from you and with you. So let's get started. Today, we're talking about starting to build or continuing to build a culture of attendance in out-of-school time programs. And as we think about as you think about your sites and specific programs, why does attendance matter to you other than satisfying that 85% attendance rule? If you can put that answer in the chat, we'll give you that a few minutes, just maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and maybe in the meantime, some of your other colleagues are jumping on the webinar. So please let us know, why does attendance matter to you? I see building relationships, academic growth, and social emotional learning. Consistency, yes, Rachel, thank you. More educational impact. We're providing something that parents and students value. Absolutely. Better family rapport. Yeah, we can't help them if they're not there. So true. Creates better buy-in, more engagement. Yeah. Maintain relationships, build and maintain relationships with our students and families. Ability to help students with their specific needs. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for responding. And keep your answers going if you're in the middle of a thought. School and family community growth, absolutely, right? This is an all hands on deck approach, and as we think about attendance, there's so many facets or aspects of our work that should be done in collaboration. Wonderful. All right, here are the learning goals for today. We will look at understanding what chronic absence is and why it matters in out-of-school time programs, identifying evidence-based tiered intervention strategies. We know that a lot of you are using lots of successful strategies. We'll learn about those and have a little bit of back and forth and peer learning and sharing, and then explore tools to support increased attendance and engagement. So let's dive in. What is chronic absence? It is when students miss 10% or more of school for any reason, right? So this is a measure that includes excused, unexcused, and suspensions, excused absences, unexcused absences, and suspensions. And this is designed to serve as an early warning metric for when students are at risk academically due to poor attendance. So if we think about it in terms of days, it's 2 days a month in the first month, 4 days in the second month, 6 days, and so forth. So the difference between average daily attendance and truancy and chronic absence is listed here. Average daily attendance is a school level measure that tells how many students show up each day, and it helps us notice when dips occur, but it masks individual student absences. Truancy, as you know, it counts only unexcused absences. It typically emphasizes that blaming and punitive approach. Whereas chronic absence counts all absences. It emphasizes the impact of missed days and the benefits of being present, engaged, participating, and uses that prevention and problem solving and trauma sensitive strategies. And really, it cultivates family and student engagement. And so those are some of the things that you actually put in the chat, but really promoting that deep engagement with families and students. And so we know that when a student misses, instruction, misses school, there's a ripple impact or ripple effect. It affects individual students. It can also affect other students in the classroom, the teachers that have to reteach. And if the level of chronic absence is high, it affects the entire school, including out of school time programs. And so, if you go to the next slide, you'll see that we're still in a national chronic absence crisis as a nation. We have data from, or the latest data we have is from 2023, and you can see that chronic absence nearly doubled from 16.2% in 2018-19 to 29.7, almost 30% in 21-22, and then it slightly reduced to 28%. So, while we are in a good trend of decrease, these rates are very elevated. And so, just like you, many leaders in communities are still facing this national crisis. So what do we do? Let's go to the next slide. Why then does attendance matter in out-of-school time programs? First, we know that regular attendance and participation in a quality program increases its impact on social and academic outcomes. And then second, research shows that quality programs can improve school day attendance. The sense of belonging, the connection to caring adults in the academic enrichment that they provide outside of the school can make the children likely or more likely to go to school. So here are some, just a couple of pieces of research that say, yes, attendance matters in out-of-school time programs. So we know that better attendance in out-of-school time programs is associated with lower truancy. That's the one type of absence, right? Or fewer suspensions and a greater likelihood to be promoted to the next grade. It also offers us clues about the intensity of support that student or family need. And then out-of-school time programs offer assets that can improve attendance. So again, this is based on research and practice across the nation. Family engagement and relationships, those activities that address the mental health, the social emotional learning, just like you mentioned in the chat, the wellness of the families are the strengths, right? We're using those asset-based perspective. Then combining those strengths with consistent attendance taking and data analysis can help your programs enhance your strategic use of your strengths. And then when schools and after-school programs share information and jointly support families, we're much more effective at addressing barriers and really promoting that student-family success. So then out-of-school programs can and should make a difference. So we think about engaging families and in their children's learning in meaningful ways, fostering partnerships that maximize their resources and build community ties, building the youth assets such as character, resilience, and wellness, and then truly promoting that student success, and then the college and career readiness. And these are extracted from expanded learning research. All right, so knowing that we come from this asset-based perspective and knowing that in out-of-school type programs, there's so much potential for impacting student success. And while you fulfill your mandates as well, let's see how we can take this problem on and how we can shift our perspective so that it makes a big difference. So that means using a multi-tiered attendance strategy that really begins and focuses on prevention and early intervention. I wanted to introduce you to what we call at Attendance Works the pathway for change. And this pathway for change is really helping us get to our desired outcomes by following this sequence of the work, not jumping straight into strategies, but really being mindful of starting with a mindset that's positive, not punitive, a mindset that is really focused on problem solving, where we see students and families as an important part of the solution, and not in people or a problem to be solved. Then we need actionable data that tells us which students need support and what's the level of support that we should pour into them. And then we need the capacity, which means the professional training and the time to provide that support. And after all that, we select the strategies as a team to apply this work to intervene and support our families and students. And that will get us to the desired outcomes. So if we think about starting with a mindset that's positive, we wanted to think about problem focused versus partnership focused. In thinking about your programs and how you interact with students and families, if we approach a family only to address a problem, that's a problem-focused approach, right? But instead, we should do initial outreach that focuses on building a relationship. I work with several grantees in Michigan, and one of their goals as a community or as a network has been to make positive phone calls before even approaching a negative call that they had to make. So they're investing a lot in that prevention and early intervention. One-way messaging to families that we just pour and send information expecting to for them to respond and they don't, instead of starting to listen to families, finding their hopes, dreams, assets, and needs, thinking about how do we build that partnership early enough so that we include their wishes and really their dreams for their children. So instead of focusing only on barriers, we would leverage the student and family strengths to overcome challenges, right? So you can think of an example of if you have students that are language learners, right? What are some of the resources that you already have to leverage the family strengths to make sure that programming happens in languages other than English, or information is sent that way? Then we also think about presuming that we have all the answers and that we know what's best for the family, and instead, obviously, collaborating with families and encouraging those practices that build on what they really wish. What are their priorities? What are their dreams for their children and interests? So thinking about these partnership-focused approach, and this is a pause so we can hear from you. What's one example of a partnership-focused approach in your programs? And if you can put that in the chat, we would be glad to see your answer. Partnership-focused, not problem-focused. Maybe a shift that you've made, and you've seen success. Leanne, thank you. Open houses and family engagement activities. Yeah, absolutely. I say community outreach. Cynthia, thank you. Some of the classes are using Class Dojo to tell parents the weekly activities. Yep, that communication, that we want that communication that's two-way, right? We've surveyed our families to inquire about potential parent workshops tailored specifically for them. Yes, those could be very powerful. Meeting monthly with parents to discuss program. Bring in interactive science, assemblies to build relationships and make the school a positive environment. Beautiful. Yes. Parent Square. Reaching in communication with families. Engaging local businesses. Yes, that's a crucial partnership and a perspective that is very important. Local businesses to engage with students for college and career readiness. Wonderful. That's really great to hear. Keep your answers coming in the chat if you wish to do so, and just want to keep us moving along. So as we think about how we address absences in our programs, here's how we think about um, attendance and chronic absence, in fact, during the school day, which could also be the basis of how you think about the dosage or the attendance in the out-of-school time programs. Um, we use this multi-tiered system of support to improve attendance. Tier one represents the universal strategies that encourage that good attendance for all students. Tier two, when students start missing more than 10% of school day, it provides that early intervention for students who need more support in order to avoid getting to that chronic absence stage. And then tier three offers the most intensive interventions for students with the greatest challenges to getting to school. If you notice, at the bottom of the pyramid, we have the foundational supports. So these foundational supports promote positive conditions for learning. And in the next slide, we'll see what that means. Before we go to the next slide, sorry, Michael, I just wanted to say that the tiers are additive. So that means that if a student who starts to have absences and a student who has a lot of absences are still in need of support. So these tiers are additive. So when we think about what we do in tier one, that universal prevention, that's for all students and families. So let's go to the positive conditions for learning. All right, so positive conditions for learning lead to students being engaged and really attending on a regular basis. When we see absences, that's a sign that one or more positive conditions for learning are missing. And as you look at the graph, you see that relationships are essentials. They're there at the center with that heart and hand. And also the four conditions of learning overlap. So as we think about your programs and sites, when we are organized to promote students' physical and emotional health and safety, we have students attending a lot more. In the blue boxes, you have some examples of those positive conditions for learning strategies, actions. And so that's for you to go deeper into the content. When we promote that belonging, connection, and support in our programs, we see a lot more students attending as well. When we make learning challenging and engaging so that students don't want to miss class or programming, we see that better attendance. When we invest in adult and student well-being and emotional competence, we also have success. So as you think about these four positive conditions for learning, you probably could connect with some of the work that you're doing in out-of-school time programs, whether you're doing credit recovery opportunities or internships or project-based learning. We heard some of you who have STEM. Whether you're doing intentional restorative circles or you use restorative practice. You have obviously enrichment and clubs and homework help. As you think about these positive conditions for learning, let's go to the next slide. How does your program meet these needs? So we're looking for some examples that fit into the positive conditions for learning. How do you see these needs met through your programs? If you can put that in the chat, we would really appreciate it. And these are really those reasons that kids, youth come to your programs. What makes them come to your programs? UBIS initiatives, positive behavior. Catherine, thank you for saying that. Hiring staff who can connect with students, that's so meaningful. We'll talk about relationships and that connection. That's so critical to how we interact with students and families. What else? Why do kids and youth come to your programs? Of these positive conditions for learning, What do you see in your programs? Mm. I see staff consistency, variety of classes, snacks and meals. Yep. Food is a theme here. hmm Our OSD program intentionally creates a supportive learning environment through PBIS. Thank you so much for aligning practices, consistent adult-student relationships, snacks and food again, lunch buddies, lunch brunch conversations with students. Yeah, that's an opportunity to have those intentional connections with them. We are not a neighborhood school and they come to see their friends. PATS programs, team challenges, hmm and family events. Sounds like there is something from each of these positive conditions for learning that has been exemplified in your chat. Fun clubs, friends, consistency. Absolutely. These are really wonderful to see. Very rural, so not a lot of kids seeing friends. Absolutely. So then your programs and opportunities to get together with friends is so much more important for them. Wonderful. That's really wonderful to see. Great. We wanted to give you some examples of what are those strategies that you could take and apply in your settings. So some of these universal strategies are adapted for out-of-school time programs. And so anywhere from that clear, concise, and consistent communication, and you did mention not just the apps that you're using, but the two-way communication, consistent, regular communication, that's key. Creating that welcoming environment for students and parents, right? That's such a big deal. Taking daily attendance accurately and with care, monitoring attendance data for different reasons to understand why students come to school, why they miss, to recognize and acknowledge their progress. Those are good reasons. Celebrating good and improved attendance, right? Thinking about that. How important it is for a student or for their families to be noticed when they make progress, right? Or when they fall back to be supported through positive engagement. Providing opportunities for students to connect with each other. That's what you just said, right? Those fun events, the programs that are super interesting and engaging for students, hands-on or interactive. How wonderful that is. And then exchange attendance information virtually with school staff, right? Many of you are also school staff, perhaps teachers, and those of you who are not, right? That creating that collaboration between you as out-of-school time program directors or leaders or key staff and the school staff is such an integral part of making this partnership work really well. So these are some of those universal strategies that you can continue to apply in your programs. If we go to the next slide, besides the strategies that you already mentioned that were connected to the positive conditions for learning, what other tier one strategies do you have, or which ones do you find most effective? And remember, again, tier one is for all students, right? It helps us keep that prevention and early intervention perspective. What have you found as the most effective? Mm, perfect attendance prizes. Okay. And Leanne, with the perfect attendance prizes, we always think about good and improved recognitions, like in acknowledgments, focusing on that, because I wonder how many of the students are perfect, right? But if you think about this, acknowledgement as looking at all students, that would be even more impactful, I would say. Class dojo messaging, yeah. Oh, providing transportation. That's wonderful that you can do that. Many out of school times don't have the resources or struggle with that. So that's wonderful to see. You have an extended wait list for, oh, I see, too many days. They're dismissed. hmm Yeah, again, perfect attendance. I would say good and improved attendance. Maybe that's something that you can think about with your teams and see how that would work. Because I'm sure that you would be able to capture more students with good and improved attendance instead of perfect. Clear specific expectations. Kids can't meet expectations they don't understand. Absolutely. And that's applying to everyone, not just students and families, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Prizes are expensive depending on donations, which is why those partnerships with community agencies or small businesses is really important. Um, yep. Yeah, great, great. Certificate for improved attendance. Wonderful. I'm sure that that's very much appreciated. Wonderful. Let's look at tier two. Next slide. So tier one again was for all students with really that strong basis of attendance. Tier two is when we start to have absences add up. So this is when we intervene early, right? And we wrote in there that out of school time programs are especially positioned to address mental health and emotional wellness and create a deeper sense of personal connection. So, and I'm sure that all these interventions here are familiar to you. So, community building and school barrier identified and addressed really they come to your programs, caring mentors, whether you're following a prescribed program or you're doing more of an informal mentorship program, tutoring for different students, check in, check out if you follow that program, small group interventions and support for students, PBIS, which you already mentioned. Actually, a few of you have mentioned. So these are really great. One of the resources that I wanted to share with you that could be really powerful if you're not using it already is the student attendance success plan. And I wonder, Michael, if you would be able to pull this up, because this is a document that you don't have to invent. You would be able to download it for yourself. Yeah, if you want to click on either version of it, it downloads as a Word, and you can personalize it to your out of school time program. And it's really an opportunity for the out of school time staff to have a conversation with the student or with their parents and set those goals that we talked at the beginning, or their interests or their dreams for their child, or what they would like to get out of the program as they continue to participate. So you set up those joint agreements, and you commit to that good attendance in your programs, listing out what they commit to and what you commit to. So that's again, it's a success plan. We don't call it a contract because it's not. The second page includes what we call the Families Help Bank. That means that that's where we list, it's that green, yep, the sheet with the green target, yep. That's when we list who is the potential or consistent helper that could ensure that the student makes it to your program when they should. And so that this is an opportunity for you to collect the information and keep the information of those close to the family, potential helpers, especially when we know that phone numbers change often, or addresses. And so building your asset here is really critical. And then the third page is where we send the calendar of the program. The example that we have on our website is a school calendar that includes the events that happen at the school, but you can replace that with your program calendar so that the family has it maybe one more time. And so this, we hope, and this can be done for parents and for students. So there's two different versions. And then you'll see that again, you can take and personalize yours to your program. And the link is in the chat. So thank you, Catherine, for dropping that. So we really hope that this is meaningful oh, this is helpful to you as you have those initial conversations with the families that start to have absences add up. As we think about that mindset shift, if you remember a few slides ago, we talked about the pathway for change, and it starts with that mindset, right? That positive mindset. We want to think about how we shift from focusing on just compliance and funding, right? Because we heard that you have that 85% rate for meeting the program requirements, to also including that the fact that attendance is about engagement, building relationships, and improved outcomes. And so as we think about how we look at the attendance data and how you think about the data and what your practices are around out of school time program data, we wanted to invite you to a breakout room where you have an opportunity to talk with your colleagues and exchange insights and suggest or hear each other out about how you take this data-driven approach. Before we jump into our discussion, I wanted to let's go to the next slide. And this is how we think about tracking attendance. We know that you have to, and we know that you do it. And so a data-driven approach begins with attendance taking in an accurate and caring manner. What does that mean? It means that you are consistent, that you are extending grace where grace needs to be extended, taking attendance maybe a couple of times to make sure that ensuring that it's documented, that it's not forgotten, and however systems you are doing. So whether it's an application, whether it's a spreadsheet that you have set up, whether it's a school system, just thinking about how you take this data-driven approach that takes that accuracy and carrying in consideration. Then analyzing attendance data regularly, daily, weekly, because that's how we are going to be able to get to that actionable data, right? How do I identify those attendance patterns? What are the trends that we see over time or in different programs? So thinking about how that attendance data could be made into actionable data is also key, because actionable data will help us determine what we would need to do in terms of intervention, what might be the strategies that we need to implement, and what is our implementation practice. Who's doing what support to families and the students. Then address the barriers to attendance and make referrals as needed. That's part of our work once we figure out the strategies and we do that practice. And then all this work is meant to promote deeper engagement. So with this in mind, let's go to the next slide. And we have a little bit of time for you to spend in small groups to answer these 5 questions. What are the expectations for student attendance in your programs? What happens with the attendance data? Who's responsible for collecting attendance in your programs? How often is the data reviewed and for what purpose? And then what actions do you take? We want to invite your small group to take turns to answer these questions. And I would say, if at all possible, I would make sure that you share insights and maybe perhaps even suggest tools or talk about the successes that you have seen in your programs as it relates to the data analysis and how you take actions based on the data. And then when we come back from the breakout, we'll ask some of you to share your examples. So before we're sent into the breakout rooms, here are some ground rules. if you would be so kind to turn your video cameras on for your friends in your small group, briefly introduce yourself and then create the space for everybody to speak. And then the person whose first name is closest to the letter A, be the facilitator of your small group, keeping each other on track and answering the 5 questions. And we'll put the 5 questions in the chat. I can drop them now. Oh, thank you, Catherine. Catherine already did. So that you have them before going into the breakout room. So let me turn it over to Michael, who's gonna help facilitate us for the small group. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope that time in your small groups was quite engaging. I'm going to ask at least one or two teams to share some of their insights. What are some of those things that you've peer shared and or learned about and want to take for yourselves to apply in your setting? And if you want to come off of mute, that's even more meaningful. We can hear you, see you. You can also put in the chat.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexis. My name is with an A. So I was a facilitator for my group. We were in room 1, but we just discussed a lot of ideas and skills as far as getting attendance and how to track it and making sure that students are coming in, and also seeing like a pattern of if it depends on the month. Like December is always a hard month just because it's the holidays and we might have testing and we might have early dismissal, so that can affect attendance as well. But I also shared with the group that for our attendance, we have like a scanner where students scan their finger and it automatically pops into our Excel sheet. And I'm still new to the program. I've been here for 2 months. At my school, but they have a fingerprint. So once the students come in, automatically they have to scan their finger in. So we have a person that moderates the attendance and making sure they scan their finger in before they come in and get a snack and sit down and things. So that's a way of just making sure we're on top of how many students are coming in each day. And then I'm putting in the check of which student came in for that day. So those are the things that we discussed.
Thanks, Alexis. There's some.
Could I ask a quick question? Could you put in the chat the fingerprint scanner? I'd like to pursue that.
Yes, I was just telling the other group that I'm not sure what the system is, but I will do my research and I'll put in my email so that you can have it and then send those questions so then I can do some research and then email it to you guys.
Mhm. Thanks, Alexis. And the implication of that is obviously parent consent and many other things like they had agreement with the organization. And yes, yes.
I have a question for Alexis. How did you prepare your students for that? I think it's like a biometric kind of thing you're doing there. How did you prepare your students to operate in that system or to
So
discipline themselves in that system?
So I've been here for about 2 months, and what I've been learning is that I believe they started doing it like in August when they first said to come back into school. And I think they definitely had like documentations of consent of like, we're going to use your student fingerprint. Because they already had to do paperwork, of course, to, enroll and everything else. And I think their idea was in order for us to track students' attendance for after school programs, they have like summer camps in the summertime. They have programs in the beginning of the school year. And I think at that time, they thought it would be a good idea to have a form saying like, hey, we're going to use your students, information, and a way for us to track it, we have to use fingerprints. And using that model, students are like already structured to scan their finger in as soon as they come into the cafeteria. So the way the program is set up, we have staggered dismissals, and with the staggered dismissal, most students come in a different stairway. And then they come down. There's already a table at the front of the door, so they cannot just come in. They have to automatically just come in, scan, then they get to sit down and then they grab their snacks. So it's already like programmed and organized and structured in a way where the students have to like scan their finger, and if they don't, then we have to tell them like, hey, come back, scan your finger in, and then that's how we capture the data. And then on my computer, I just we have a spreadsheet, and I'm able to check off each student that I see as it's like chronological order of, and then check it off that way for each month in a date.
Yeah.
So to lunch accounts too. That's a good question. I am not sure. But I did put my email in the chat. So if you have any other questions around um, the fingerprints, I can definitely get those answers for you. Because I'm not sure how long they've been doing this also. So that's a good question. This program been here for a couple years now, so I'm not sure if this is something new that they started or they've been doing this since the program has started at the school.
Thanks, Alexis. That's really great information. Yeah. I'm wondering if other groups have talked about once they track the data, how do you identify the patterns? What have you noticed? Alexis talked about early dismissal. And that's something to keep in mind, right? As you think about consistent attendance and seeing, obviously that would impact attendance in your programs. What else in terms of trends or patterns have you noticed in your data? And then what actions do you take?
I could talk a little bit about what we talked about in our group. We talked about how we could use the data to be more informed on our operational decisions. And just like what you said, we use a system called ProCare. It's a really simple, user-friendly app to check people in and out. And then we have someone to analyze the data and compile it in a way that is usable to make decisions. And so when we look at the data, we have seen those patterns of early dismissal or reoccurring patterns in certain months when events fluctuate in the school. And so that does allow us to kind of prepare in advance to say, now that we've seen these things in the data, how are we going to use it? Just with early dismissals, those we use as just informative conversations with parents around the importance of attendance. But that's like step A of reading the data. So then after we've observed that behavior, had the conversation, and the desired outcome still hasn't been shown, we then go step 2 in our process of, we definitely need to see progress because we've continued to see the pattern. But we do check the data for other patterns as well. And it's something recently we're trying to do better on, is how we can use the attendance to boost engagement. And then just some techniques. So that was something.
That's really great. Thanks, Andy. Wonderful to hear. One other comment, a quick one, if anybody wants to say, and then we'll move on to the next part of our conversation or session. Other insights, nuggets to share with our
I would like to ask Ms. Johnson again. You said you're going to put something in the chat for us?
Yeah, I put my email in the chat if you have any questions, and in that way I can answer any questions once I ask admin how they use the fingerprints and like what service do they use and computer and stuff like that for you all.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
And ask them the name of the application.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Again, it sounds like your conversations have been very focused, and I appreciate that. As you connected with your colleagues in the small groups, you got to exchange some information and even in exchange your contact information, so you keep connected. All right, let's move on. And for this part of our session, we're going to take a look at what do we do once we know that where we notice that students are absent in our programs, right? We notice those patterns. First of all, we take attendance consistently. We look at the data. We analyze the patterns, the trends, and then we got to take action. How do you do that, right? It starts with understanding the root causes of absences in our programs. In order to do that, we want to use, or we can use, a variety of qualitative data tools. Um, whether you use uh, the actions or the practices that you've been doing or something new is really up to you and your team. Here are some of the qualitative data tools that you can consider. Scan of environment or attendance tool. This is a tool that AttendanceWorks has designed to identify what are those strengths and opportunities that promote a culture that's strong around attendance. Those are on the website, and all these qualitative data tools, I'm sorry, are in the link that's on the slide. Empathy interviews. These involve targeted one-on-one conversations with a small group of students to really understand their learned or learn about their lived experience. Or maybe you consider a 2x10. 2x10 is a focused relationship building strategy that means that between a caring adult and a student, or maybe a couple of students, you spend 2 minutes a day for 10 consecutive days, engaging with that student with not a prescribed plan, but just to connect with them on a personal level and get to know them a little bit better. Research has shown that after that 10-day marker, those relationships are more trusted between the student and the adult. Or you can think about doing focus groups with students, or an attendance cafe where you bring people together and really engage with parents or guardians around what you've noticed, how to anticipate those days of attendance dips, and what are the fun events that are coming up, and how do you engage their voice in the planning going forward. Or you can consider surveys. You can even shadow a student if that's an option for you. Once we use these qualitative data tools, we are much more likely to understand the root causes of chronic absence. And this is how we think about, how AttendanceWorks thinks about root cause of chronic absence and how we might be able to identify them. So you see that the root causes are in 4 different buckets: our barriers, aversions, disengagement, and misconceptions. When you think about the systemic challenges that we face in many of our communities, we think of the big bucket of barriers, like anywhere from those chronic or acute illnesses to the unstable housing, to poor transportation, to lack of access, whether it's to tech or the right resources, or violence in the community. Those are things that are many times out of the control of the school or the out of school time programs. And so these are systemic issues that we deal with, and many times we are able to refer them out to agencies that partner with the schools or with your programs to support. When you think about aversions, those are things that, especially as we think about the programs, out of school programs, that create that unwelcoming school climate, or anxiety. You notice a lot of anxiety, or you notice that caregivers have negative experiences. What keeps students away from programs, right? So in these situations, many times we might be able to have more influence and control over what happens and how we can solve a need. When we talk about disengagement, it's that lack of meaningful relationships to students and peers in the school or in your programs. It's thinking about what are those like very fun enrichment opportunities that are needed and wanted by your students, right? So ensuring that we have those, that we provide those, is how you can address the root causes of absences in the out of time school context. When we think about misconceptions, this is where we notice that we don't have the clear information, or the parents or the students don't have the right information. And so if we think about absences are only a problem if they're unexcused, that's not true, right? We know that when students miss school, right, whether it's for excused absences or unexcused absences or suspensions, they miss instruction. And so that is impacting their academic success. And more than that, sometimes even their social emotional development and relationships with peers and that trust built, right? So thinking about what are those misconceptions, what are those areas of communication and sharing information that we can clarify for our students and families, so that it's clear what we're expecting. We talked about the expectations and what we're offering, how we get to that desired outcome. So when you think about the root causes of absences in your programs, what are some of them? Let's go to the next slide. We wanted to ask you, does your out of school time program address any of these root causes? And if so, which ones? If you can put that in the chat, we would really appreciate it. What might be some of the specific ones, or some of the barriers, aversions, misconceptions, or disengagement?
Hi, it's me again. I think for us is our school staff, that our teachers, they are here as teaching staff, and then they have to stay after school. And so I think that burnout is real. And so when they get burnt out, we might not be able to have a program. And so we've also addressed it as like maybe hiring a college student and making sure that we can have someone that is a little bit more younger, just so students can relate to them, but also give a break to teachers, so that they don't have to focus on staying after school late, because they have to be there early in the morning,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
program is not over till like 5 something. So just giving them a break and giving them the autonomy of letting us know, like, if you are facing burnout, like, let us know ahead of time so that we can find someone else that can replace, so that we're not just discontinuing the program or taking a break.
Thanks for sharing, Alexis. That's wonderful to hear that there's a solution or potential solution that's honoring the teacher's time and their expertise. Thank you for sharing. Rhonda, you said homework, classroom recovery. Do you want to explain more?
Pardon me. Yes, it's pretty much based on before they engaged in the activity, if they had anything that they want to recover from their absences or either missed in classwork, then we take a moment or up to about a half hour to make sure they clearly understand what may have been missed or prepare for a test. Also, we are we have a Saturday Academy that comes in as well. So we try to target those children who are below proficient, but also who have missed a substantial amount of time.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great support. Thank you so much for sharing and explaining. And then middle school students have diverse activities available. Students come and not come based on other activities. All right. Thanks to everybody for sharing your comments. All right, let's move on, because I want to make sure that we get through some of the other resources. So here are some tools to support that increased attendance and engagement in your programs. I wanted to introduce three examples of high leverage relational activities. And these are high leverage because they lay a foundation for those carrying positive relationships. And that's what I heard from you, both in what you shared and in the chat. They can be used with staff and with students, and they're often offered universally with extra attention and tailoring to make sure that it reaches the students who are missing the programs. So these are the three that we're going to share today: relationship mapping, greetings by the door, and then the community circle. So let's go and learn a little bit about the relationship mapping. The link is in there and you can download and use it. But just a little bit of a description of what this is. It's a great opportunity to dive into both a framework and a strategy. So as you think about the students in your programs, this strategy or tool will give you an opportunity to see the students all at a glance. When you list their names, imagine a gallery walk, list their names on a chart paper or somewhere where it's all visible. The activity would engage the caring adults in that program, perhaps in the school as well, so that we can visually see who has an existing relationship with an adult. So the goal of the activity is that no student in our program should be without a caring adult connected to them. So that means that whether you do it with dots or in a variety of other ways, electronically, you ensure that those names are connected to caring adults that are part of the program and or your collaboration with the teachers in the school. And so this involves all the schools, all the caring adults of the program and the students that you support. And so many times we've seen the relationship mapping be done in reverse, where the students select who are the caring adults that they want to be connected with, because many times we form relationships based on a go-to person that might not be well known. So I would encourage you to check this out. This is a really great resource from Harvard, the Graduate School of Education, and use it for yourselves in your programs if you have not matched your students to a caring adult. Another strategy that you can use is the positive greetings at the door, which is on the next slide. And this is, it sounds really basic and it's so powerful at the same time, right? To have your teacher for the day, the helper, the coordinator for the day really greet you by name with a smile or with your selected way of being greeted. And so there's a resource in here for a video of that exemplifies the greeting by the door and the implementation guidance for it if you choose to use that. I wanted to go to the next slide and look at the community circle. The goal here is for all students that are part of that program to be seen, heard, known, and to be cared for, to develop that connection with the adults in the program. And so we wanted to show you the video. And again, there's an implementation guidance that comes with it. So I'm going to ask Michael to play the video for us.
Using your desk as a whiteboard, answer questions, and then we'll start the rotations. The Respond, Reflect, Review protocol is an active engagement activity where students evaluate each other's work. The first part of it, students respond to a given question or prompt. When the timer dings, be ready to rotate. They rotate in order to reflect on what was written and leave a piece of feedback. How can your partner strengthen their response? Rotation 2. And then they rotate to a different desk and leave a positive affirmation or praise. Once they return to their desk, they're able to review and share.
Nevin said, I like your evidence. It really supports your answer.
Okay. It really helps students understand what makes a good response and ways to improve their own learning.
All right. I wonder if you've been familiar with the community circles. This is such a powerful exercise, and you can apply in so many ways. Part of an icebreaker or part of your content in your programs. I hope this is something that you can take and use in your programs. So, Michael, when you're ready to share, we're at slide 34. All right. So, as you think about, again, relationship building, you have at least these three tools, and I'm sure that your expertise and you've seen so many other strategies that build on relationships that you can take and use. And again, in the deck, you'll have a variety of links that will lead you to the direct sites with that information. Let's go to the next slide now. And this one is a resource for your out-of-school time program teams, both for your leaders and for coordinators, directors, whoever is part of your out-of-school time program. As I'm thinking and imagining that you will want to take this continuous improvement approach to the work that you're doing and refining the work, deepening your partnership with students and families, expanding partnerships, perhaps even with other community partners, and with the schools where you serve. This would be a really great way to think about how to take the next step in creating that efficacy for your team. So I'm going to ask Michael to actually take us to the program link because this is very small. Thank you, Michael. Just so that you have a better sense of what this team assessment looks like. And I wonder if you can make it a bit bigger. So this is called an expanded learning program self-assessment, and that means out of school time staff, and it lists 12 key practices that you can take and discuss, unpack, really talk through with your team, and then you would analyze your site, think about where you are in terms of your team, and then score each of these key practices. And so we have key practices such as taking attendance regularly. We have a team in place that reviews the data and organizes our attendance strategy, meaning that there's not just one person. And if there is one person, how do we support that person? We have a clear policy expressing the value of regular attendance and clearly communicate this policy to students. Another one is about we build strong relationships with students and families and help them meet their basic needs. And number 8, 11 is about partnering with school day staff to inform families about the importance of attendance. And so as you think about strengthening your team that does the out-of-school time program, I would encourage you to take the self-assessment and score where you are as a team for each individual, and then come together and make some decisions based on what is all in place, what needs improvement, urgent gap, with evidence to support that. And I really hope that this is a good next step for you and the teams, whether you are more advanced in the work or just starting. This could be a really powerful tool to self-assess and to move the work forward. And then in the next slide, if we go back to the slide deck, thank you. You have a list of some of some of the tools that I've shared in the session today, just as a collection of your toolbox to start thinking about not just what the research says, but what is that relationship mapping strategy, the greeting at the door, that those high leverage activities, and the link to the expanded learning program self-assessment. So with this in mind, we're going to get ready to wrap up. And we wanted to leave some time at the end for questions or comments from you based on what you heard today or any other things that you want to ask around attendance in out-of-school time programs. So I encourage you to put that in the chat, or if you want to come off of
Yeah, I like to ask a
mute.
question.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
how might you work focus groups in with parents to, if we can get the parents to understand the importance of our after school program, they would be more attentive to sending the students to the program or allowing them to come to the program. So how might you work in focus groups to make that communication?
Are you asking your colleagues?
I'm asking
You're asking
you.
me. Okay.
Well, but
Yeah.
it's open to the floor. Maybe
Yep.
my colleagues have been doing this already.
Absolutely. And I would love to hear, because this is our time to do some peer sharing. I'll share one example and then I encourage your colleagues to chime in. I personally have done middle school students and parent focus groups a few times with maybe 3 to 5 questions, not more than half an hour focus group, because we want to honor people's time, where the questions were about, why are you coming to our program? And what do you like? What are the reasons that you're coming to the program? What do you like about the program? And what do you want to see more of? We kept it on the positive side. Questions like that. And then that really helped inform what the interests and needs. So really paying attention to both sides, right? Interests and needs of the students and the parents were, and the programs in those particular schools were adjusted to meet what the students and parents said. So the focus groups really helped inform who's doing the out of school time in terms of the grantees for those schools. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, you had them mixed. They weren't isolated, parents separate from students.
It was focus group for students in middle school, and then it was a focus group with their parents. It was separate.
Separate, not mixed.
Yes, yes. But I would love to hear from your colleagues. Anybody has experience with focus groups or have done it? One of the comments from a parent that was part of the focus group was that the focus group for her mattered more because we were willing to listen than the actual changes that were going to follow. So that was, I thought that was meaningful, because it really helps parents understand that that we do care and that we want their partnerships, and they are an asset to our school and to our programs. Other questions or a response to Mr. Cashall? Yes, thank you, Charles. There are more videos on Edutopia that support that engagement and student development. Yes, that's really great videos and implementation guides. Yes. Other thoughts or comments or reflections based on what we heard today, or what you heard in your small group?
I have a question or a comment. I don't know. I don't know how widespread the attendance issue is, but I would like to ask the authorities that are online, what is being done to help the grantees that struggle with attendance in their programs? Is there anything else other than having these type of seminars, which I think are wonderful? But is there anything else that we can tap into, let's say Monday through Thursday, to kind of help us with this issue?
I wonder if that's a question for you,
Is this
Catherine, and your
aimed at
team.
us as the TA providers? Terry, I'm just clarifying.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Was this aimed at the CSC team, Terry? I just wasn't sure who this was this question was addressing?
No, it was anybody that can throw it out there, but I know that
Okay.
like the overseer of the program are you guys. And then
Yeah.
so and I don't know, I have no way of knowing how if it is widespread or how widespread it is with challenges facing attendance in the different programs. So how can or what is being done independent of these type of seminars, which are great, to kind of help us when we don't have a Miss Emma?
Yeah, of course. So I can answer a little bit of this. I will say we are not at all in charge of the grants. That is the Pennsylvania Department of Education. However, we have designed some tools surrounding attendance that I would like to share. So we did recently put out a sort of comprehensive attendance recruitment, retention, support document that I don't know if you received this, Terry, but it outlines different sort of tools and approaches that we have heard. It's not completely comprehensive, but it is a rather lengthy document with different sort of approaches to increasing attendance that speaks on points, everything from creating a welcoming atmosphere, incentivizing attendance, celebrating good attendance, all the way to developing techniques for developing closer relationships with school day staff, making sure administrators are invested. So that document is really a starting point and a launching pad for further conversations between yourself, your team, and your TA to figure out how that makes sense, how that looks in your program, how you're already sort of doing some of these things, and where you can maybe supplement some more. So that's one sort of starting point that I would speak to, just making sure you're having those conversations and then tailoring it to the needs of your program, speaking to us about the specific challenges you're having. If it's, coordinating with sports and other clubs, that's something that we can make some suggestions about in terms of, communications with those teams, maybe forming a partnership, identifying students on those teams who could use academic support and having a formal referral process in place for them. So I would invite you to reach out to us. We're very happy to have those conversations, and we're always looking for new ways and sort of innovative ways that you all are working to remedy attendance issues and concerns in your program. And to your other question, attendance issues they're relatively common. It's tough. It is tough, especially for certain grade bands in certain areas, in certain locations. It looks different for everybody, but it is something that can be a real challenge for many grantees. And so we are hoping to continue addressing this. We are having a session at ELO, which will be a networking-based session specifically on attendance, recruitment, and retention issues, where we're going to invite grantees to share with each other your challenges, your successes, and sort of get with folks in your specific grade band to work through some of these questions, use some of these tools, and things like that. So I hope that answers some of your question.
Yes, thank you for that, Ms. Catherine.
I didn't say this at the beginning, but I'm based in Michigan. And in my experience with both the traditional public schools and charter schools and a lot of the grantees, I would have to say, especially to your question, that after school has always been challenged. And we're always looking for more and more ways to support our grantees because we know that after school is so powerful and impactful for students and families. And so it not just supports their wants and their needs, but it really builds friendships and builds the community. So yeah. My desire for you specifically is that you find the resources, both financial and capacity building, that you are able to do this at scale. Yeah. And I dropped one more resource that could be a really good two-pager to share with your teams that did not make it today. So this is a write-up from Attendance Works that talks about why attendance matters for out-of-school time providers. And so take that and share it with your colleagues. Well, it was a pleasure to spend this time with you and learn with you and from you. And I hope that you leave today's session with lots of great resources and some new ideas for how to do this work and do it even better in your place of work. So many thanks to each of you. And I wish you a smooth rest of the week and a really wonderful rest of the year.
Thank you so much, Emma. We really appreciate you sharing with us today, and it was very meaningful content that I think we're all going to take a lot away from. So thank you again. A quick reminder to grantees: if you have not yet registered for ELO, please register. It's coming on up next month. Reach out to your TA provider if you're having issues registering. And thank you all for being here and absorbing and engaging with this. So have a wonderful day.